Welcome everybody to this company presentation by iBond. We are joined by CEO Martin Løbel. We are scheduled to start at 1400 hours sharp. However, I know that there are a few more that have signed up for the event that are still not in the meeting. So if you don't mind, I think we will wait another minute or so to see if the rest will join, and then I will hand over to Martin. And I think that's about all the time we're going to give the others. Again, welcome to this presentation. My name is Per Løbel from Västra Hamnen Corporate Finance. And as I just previously mentioned, we are joined by CEO of iBond, Martin Løbel. I will urge you all to ask questions throughout the presentation by writing them in the questions window that you can find on your right, depending on which device you're using or joining us from. So please write questions to us and I will read them out to Martin at the end of the presentation. Please, Martin, you can take it from here.
And thanks for that, Per, and thanks for the introduction, and thanks to all you online taking the time to listen in. I will take you through the next half hour or so. Let me see if I can. Hold on a minute. There we go. Basically, a few topics here. First of all, just a short introduction to the company itself. Some of you may be a little bit familiar with the history of the company. But following that, I will speak to our products and technology and the business line that we have in focus. So that is more or less the historical approach and what we are focusing on. And then I'm going to spend quite some time on vertical farming, which is an area we have been working for quite a while, but also where we see great potential for the long-term growth in general. So bear with me if you are very familiar with the iBond, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows a little bit about the history. So the company goes back to 2014. We are based in the northern part of Copenhagen. We have been in the approach of being a scale-up for quite some time, but right now we see ourselves as a startup. We must realize that things haven't progressed as planned, so to see, the last few years. And I joined the company here 1st of May. And have taken some steps to hopefully correct a little bit about the direction, but mostly of all have a say on the actual focus. We have some capabilities. In particular, we are actually a production company. We have an automated production facility also located here in Copenhagen. The picture here itself is from the automated Tracy equipment that has been built a few years ago and has been used on a daily basis. It has a huge capacity, many times larger than what we're actually producing and selling right now. But there has been spent a lot of money going into that, and this is what we're gonna, base our future travel here on, and in particular the Tracy automation here in general. Besides that, we have all the functional areas here in R&D, etc., and also some test facilities associated with the production in farm, which is like 15 kilometers for the headquarters. One of the things that you may have paid attention to is our fairly high cash burn compared to the revenue that we have demonstrated the last few years. And we used to be a lot of people. That has been cut down. After I started here in May, we are taking extra steps to cut costs in general. We are down to 12 headcount full-time employees at this point in time. Still, we are in control of all the functional areas, both R&D and marketing and sales, and also production itself. But you can see we are a little bit, we're a small team, And being a small team, we also have now the focus as a startup to a much larger extent, with focus on cost reduction in general. So I can assume you that we are not spending a dime on anything which is not a high priority and driving revenue both short term and long term. One of the things that I started out with when I arrived here 1st of May, a few months ago, was to look into the product portfolio, looking into the historical customer segments that we have been serving, etc. And one of the things that were very clear to me was a number of findings. First of all, we had a very broad product portfolio serving a lot of different verticals into different technologies, different technology platform that we have, etc. And also a lot of products which to a certain extent were not complete. So you may have had one sale to one segment and another sale to another segment, but no full focus across. And not to blame anybody at all, it's just an observation. So moving forward, I've defined 3 key objectives that I'm together with the board that we are driving all our priorities and focus on moving forward, where top line is priority. First of all, it's a much more focused market approach with fewer segments. So I'm not going to talk about what we are not going to do. I'm going to talk more about what we are focusing on and here short term and long term. But to a certain extent, you can say there are fewer segments that we are serving as it is. Also looking at the technology, it is a technology-based company, and this is something which is itself is interesting. I see it as a strong platform, but we have to make sure that we are applying it to products. Technology is not something that you sell, it's product that you sell. And what is very important is that we focus on producing products which has a precise fit to the market we're serving. That basically means where our competitive edge is the highest, and where we have the highest likelihood of being successful. So that's the other thing. And the last thing is the whole execution about the sale processes and customer engagement, etc. Marketing has been an area where I can clearly see that we have been far behind compared to other similar companies. So this is definitely something that we have increased our focus on since day one. So based on these focuses or 3 objectives, let's see where we ended up at all. Just 2 technology platforms, as we call them. You may be a little bit familiar with them, but basically we have the Tracy and we have the Gracie. And both of them are the technology platforms to produce innovative lighting solutions. The Tracy is based on pure aluminum. So it's a rectangular light panel with a number of spots. You can see here 2 examples of those with light points. So it's spots rather than a linear LED strip that you may be familiar with. There's tons of them on the market, in particular from Chinese suppliers. But this is a rectangular light panel with spots. Then we have the Gracie, which also is based on aluminum. It's a composite structure with 2 layers of aluminum. But again, it's 2-dimensional light panel with a very flat form factor of only 6 millimeters, where we have ability to play around with the number of the light points, etc. So these are the 2 technology platforms that we have. And the Tracy is the one that we have an automated assembly line producing. It's only partly automated when it comes to the Gracie, but I will get back to that. First of all, what we have in terms of technology is I will call it an assembly and packaging technology. So what we can do is that we can assemble LEDs. We are not producing LED. The light emitting diodes themselves is something that we buy. But we have capabilities of actually packaging them in a very smart and robust way, so that they can be mounted in either the Gracie platform or the the Gracie platform. The technology itself makes these highly water resistant, so you can actually wash them with water, etc. We have very limited cabling, and that also is of interest when it comes to making smart mounting schemes, etc. So there are a number of factors here, but basically this is just technology, but it's patented technology, and which is basically forming the platform for the products we are designing and producing. Let's just zoom in on the Tracy. So Tracy is actually a little family of different components. You can compare them to Lego building blocks. So you have the right-hand turn and left-hand turn and a T connector and a variety of the different elements that you can put together. To a large extent, the volume of this is the linear part, and it's being used for the primary two segments. One being the kitchen segment, and the other one being for carports installations, where the linear approach is the value. But there are a number of possibilities to play around with these elements, which is of interest also in the interior, actually indoor office spaces, etc. We have had some examples of that. So that's a Tracy. Where we see huge potential in terms of volume is in the carport segment, and the reason for that is the structures of a carport. So one thing, you could see some examples here where these linear light panels that fit to the structure, and that's due to the way you actually manufacture and produce these structures. And the other thing is that you can notice is that it's spot-like light panels that we have, which makes it fairly elegant compared to other solutions. That is appealing to our customers in general. And the other thing that we see is also a huge interest in deploying solar-based carports. So you actually have solar panels on top of the carports. You can see an example on the right hand the right hand below. You can see an example where the roof is actually solar panels. And what is of interest in some of these installations is that it's many kilometers actually of carport areas being put up, and thereby also high volume in terms of Tracy. We call it Tracy industry in our marketing effort. Just another zoom in here on a metal structure, and why is this interesting? Again, it's something to do with the mounting and actually the lower cost of mounting, because normally when you put up light in a carport, you need to connect it with wires, but in this case, Tracy is actually the wire itself. So not only is the light panel here good looking and robust, etc., but it's also keeping the installation cost fairly low, keeping in mind that normally you would say that the cost of the light panel and the cost of installation is kind of 50-50. So if you can make a better solution in your lighting where you can reduce the installation time, it has a huge value to customers. So basically, due to the form factor of Tracy, there is a perfect fit for solar carports, and this is one of the focus areas. It's something that we have been working on for a few years, growing on time, but this is just some of the projects that we have been deployed over time. And what we have done here in the last few months is, last 6 months, is to increase our focus on identifying potential projects in Europe and also in North America. And there is definitely customer interest, and that is why I see from a volume perspective and revenue perspective a very interesting area. Also keeping in mind that we actually have an automated production facility in Denmark to produce the Tracy in high volume. We can actually produce 300,000 meters of this per year with the capacity that we have. So it's a huge capacity. also because the product is very, very simple. When we're looking at I would call it historically prioritized business lines, these are these four as defined as part of the strategy that we set out here, a focus strategy. So we have the solar carbon that I just walked you through, which is the Tracy. And then we also have been serving service stations. This is primarily in Denmark. But again, the Gracie-based product fits perfectly into service stations in a retrofit. It's a very thin light panel, so you basically just put it in the on the ceiling and mount it. You don't have to cut holes, etc. So a lot of times replacing old lamps, it fits perfectly into that. So we have had quite some good tractions on that, and something that we'll continue pursuing to a certain extent. Then we have Tracy for the kitchen segment. Again, historical focus there has been, but since we can produce it and then something which is a standard product for us right now, we continue to serve this segment and try and also see if we can get into the home section or home improvement sector with this product in general, because it's the same product to a certain extent. From a volume perspective, again, the design interior is something both we've seen in Denmark and also started to see a little bit of interest from for abroad. Again, what is interesting is, again, it's many meters of products, but we have to be honest that the interior business is a very crowded, competitive environment. But it's something that we are continuing to have a focus on when it comes to Tracy, not in broader perspective. So in general, you can say that what we have been working on for, I would say, many years are these four lines, but there's still work to be done before we are, so to say, successful or can claim to be successful with this. Of course, it's all about driving revenue and our sales activities. So this is top of our list. We have the products. We have the Tracy product itself. We also have the Gracie. We call it canopy for service stations. It's something that we can produce, and we have increased our focus on actually defining our offering, being more clear in our documentation. If you go into our webpage now, you will actually find products, you will find data sheets, etc. Something which is normally seen when you're trying to sell technical products, but something that has had too low a focus, which has had a negative impact on the actually success in sales. So it's something that we have increased our focus on in general. The other thing is that we've done is that we have enhanced our communication. You will see much more, or you may not because you're not our target segment, but the customers that we are after, online marketing, we have increased our communication in the lead generation and spending some more money on that. It's primarily on LinkedIn that we are using. It's a business to business that we have. And we are also increasing our focus internationally, and that is right now it's Europe and also North America that we have a focus on. On the actually Tracy portfolio, we have a complete product, so to say, but we can also see that some of the components needs, I would call it slight improvements or being finalized, in order to make the installation process even better. Here's something to do with how you connect your electrical connections, etc. in an installation. So we are learning all the time and getting feedback. Right now we are in this installation process of doing Tracy in an indoor garage, parking facility. And there's also some learnings there on how we can even further improve the mounting accessory that we have. So we have, let's put it this way, a little roadmap to make it even more appealing and faster in the installation process. It's not a question of making the Tracy portfolio, you know, broader or serving more segment. No, it's just increasing the attractiveness and uniqueness of the product itself when it comes to installation. Installation is very, very important to pay attention to when it comes to industry, because it's high volume and installation costs must be kept as a minimum. The other two areas that we have is cost reduction in general. So it's the production. Even that we have some automating, we can see that some of the parts we need to find new subcontractors. When we go into volume, there are a significant amount of money to be saved, and that is another way to increase the profit, so to say, or the margin on the products, which has been fairly low for quite some time. It's not a question of us driving up the revenue, the sales price. It's more a question of that we have to earn the margin by cost reduction in our production setup and etc. And we have already identified a number of things there, but it takes time, and that is something that we have to work with as we move forward in volume. The last thing is what I call warranty, quality, and certification, and that is an area which has increased importance. Simply because most of the projects that we are involved in, and that also goes for vertical farming, by the way, is that these products are meant to last for many, many years, and warranty and quality management is very important to ensure that we don't have a risk associated with that. Certifications, in particular in the US market, but also in other markets, by the way, but it's something that we have to work on and set aside the resources for to ensure that, because without certifications, we cannot do these business-to-business sales in larger scale, simply because it's a requirement in the tenders, etc. So that's something that we have full focus on moving forward. So in general, I could say that this basically capture the historical activities for LED iBond's and the historical products where we have increased our focus and make sure that we will be successful in a very selected number of segments, and also focusing our resources in terms of sales, marketing, and technical support for very few selected products. So a very, very essential objectives that we have identified. That is the short term, so to say, and then we are going to move into vertical farming. And vertical farming is an area where there is a lot of potential, and there's also a lot of opportunities for LED iBond, and there's a lot of activities. But the revenue, there's been talking a lot about revenue, also historical from our side and the company side, going a year back, etc. I think we must admit, and also what became clear to me after I arrived here, is that the maturity of this vertical farming business is probably a little bit lower than most people may imagine or think. And the reason for that is it's extremely complex to build a vertical farm. There's so many technologies involved in this, and let's get into a few of these because it also represents a great opportunity for LED iBond, because we have parts of that technology as it is. But let's take it away and see as it is. I've taken here this picture. So this is actually you can see the Gracie is called Gracie horticulture growth light panel, and these light panel here, there's different colors in them, and color when it comes to growing plants and variety of colors is extremely important. I will show you some examples of this. But this is actually from one of the larger chest facilities that actually this is production. These the greens that you see here in this slide is actually being used to produce food from a restaurant which is located next door in this building here. But what is interesting here to see also, as you can see, there's some fans at the left-hand side. The whole airflow combined with humidity, etc. It's a very, very complex piece of equipment that is needed to ensure that you optimize basically yield of your plants and also the quality and the taste, etc. So it's a complex work. It's not just light. The other thing is that when you look at, I tend to call it indoor farming and not necessarily vertical farming. Vertical farming has something to do when you stack plants into a number of layers. But the indoor concept in general is different requirements requiring different lighting solutions. And if you're just at the left-hand side, you see a nursery farm. So these are kind of farms where you actually produce a very, very small plants that goes into production facilities. So you don't plant a little seed in a production facility. No, you do that in a nursery farm, and then you move the plants because they require more space, etc. But it's just different kind of requirements to the products in nursery farms. Transportation equipment is another example. This is actually a picture of a trolley that some of our customers are producing, and you can see the light panels in there is what iBond has designed and is supplying. And here you can see a good example where the form factor, the fact that this lamp is only 6 millimeters thick, very, very thin, has a perfect fit to this application. And on the right-hand side, we have containers and in-store displays, etc. Again, the form factor, the fact it's a very thin component is of interest. And we have customers testing our solution to a variety of these different verticals. But what we are unsure about is exactly where the perfect fit is, so to say, and also where the customers potentially will succeed. As a good example, will containers, be the big seller? Well, if you're going to ship them to remote areas in this world, it may be, but containers don't fit into any kind of market in any country. It's very specific for locations here, which solution is going to win. Large production facilities is basically where we would like to be at, because this is where the volume is, and this is also where we have an attractiveness to our products in terms of technology and unique selling points. But before we go and talk about that, just a little slide here on the market size and the outlook. And everybody knows that you can find research reports saying something, and this is just one example. It's going to be big, no doubt about that, but it's also going to be something which is taking steps, so to say, and it will also be something which is different from country to country in terms of what you're going to grow. I know in Japan it's strawberry, in Europe it's cannabis for medical use, etc. So it may be a variety across that. But one thing, the takeaway here is that lighting solution itself represents the biggest expense in putting up a vertical farm. So there's huge focus on choosing the right lamp when you're designing a factory, and that is of course an opportunity for us if you have the right technology with the right fit, which I strongly believe that we have. But you can see here 44% out of the what is required to build such a solution, which is a big number. Basically, you could say that in order to grow indoor, you need some a lamp with some light. And what we have here is panels which are flat. Not only are they flat, but they are also giving you kind of a confined space, making it easier to control airflow, as an example. We also have a design that allows for very low power consumption compared to competing solution. And power consumption in these times of high electricity cost is, of course, very, very important. We have built some mounting systems that allows easy click on and slide in. Installation cost, again, is a key factor in these farms because they are huge, and you have to keep maintenance cost, installation cost, etc. So a number of elements makes it very, very interesting and unique for our solution compared to others. Another thing I want to highlight is two things. One thing is that it's a highly water resistant panel, so you can actually wash them in water without them, breaking. And that is one of the things that we know is a problem for many light solutions. If you go to Google and Google lights for vertical farms, you will find thousands. One of the biggest problems with them is that they are not highly water resistant. And if they are not low power in terms of power efficiency. But the fact is that they are in a very humid environment, makes them stop working after a year or two. And these lamps need to work for at least 8 years, maybe 10 years in order to make such a farm good business. So that is a number of advantages of our technology compared. This is, I think, that we have a very, very, very appealing offering here. The last thing I want to highlight is the last bullet, customized spectrum. We can actually do customized spectrum and still maintain all the unique selling points at the same time. So we have a number of check marks, so to say, all the way down at the same time. And this is what makes this very, very interesting. And bear with me, guys, even that it can be a little bit technical, but I think it's important that you understand that because our secret sauce is actually in the technology. On the left-hand side, you can see all the parts that goes into making one light in the plate, in the crazy plate. And what you can see is that it contains, it has room for 4 individual light emitting diodes. And the fact is that we can combine, we have a design where we can combine them from different manufacturers. We have the ability to choose the best LEDs with the lowest power consumption or the best power efficiency, and at the same time tailor the right spectrum. You can say that you need different kind of spectra for different phases of the plant. When it's a small plant, you need one kind of spectrum, and when it grows up, you need another kind. So this is the whole customized fact is something that our customers pays a lot of attention to. So you can say, very simple, they would like a lamp that are cheap, power efficient, with the right spectrum, low maintenance costs, etc. They want all the check marks. That is what we have. And just to show you why spectrum is so important, I'm just going to show you some data here. And the interesting thing is that it's highly depending on the type of plant that you're growing. So depending on what you want to grow, you have different requirements. But if you guys are familiar with the term wavelength and spectrum, here's an example of 3 different spectra that comes out of our 3 different types of lamps that we have produced. And in this case, if you take iceberg as an example, you can see here that if you use the first one called growth light, it will produce 187 grams of iceberg for a specific test area. Whereas you take the middle one, you produce 224 grams. And if you look at the spectra, you can see there's a little bit more blue in one of them compared to the other. But from a financial perspective, the fact that the center one actually gives you 20% more weight is a huge difference in terms of how profitable your factory is. And this is why, making sure that you are tailoring spectrum and basically the energy you're using, you have to do that wisely. So it's very complex. And the next problem is that you need different spectra for different phases. So all of this complexity is where LED iBond plays. And this is where the value is, not only in the lamp itself, but also in the knowledge. So we basically want to move from being just a lighting panel supplier to actually supplying more sophisticated solutions that is driving the yield for a farmer up, and thereby also making sure that they are increasing the profitability of their land. So this is just an example where this is of very, very high importance. The other thing is energy efficiency. And you can put it differently. How many watt of electricity are you gonna use per square meter of growth area? And since we have very few light points, we can choose the best LEDs. It's not that we can buy LEDs that nobody else can buy, but the fact is, if you take our competitors, they have a different approach. They may have 1,000 LEDs in a lamp, and whereas we have maybe 50. So we can afford to take them high efficiency, and thereby we are also getting the lowest electrical power consumption per meter. And these are some actual numbers. We haven't tested all alternatives which are out there, but our customers are helping us out, telling us where we are, and we are definitely at the lowest end. And again, if you have a farm, and you can do the calculus yourself with the energy prices that we have, if you have, as an example here, of the top one, where it consumes 50% more power per square meter, there's a huge impact on the cost of your production. So this is a very important metric, and we are at the head of the game when it comes to that. The other thing is yes, the lamp is a little bit more expensive compared to the low-cost panels that we see on the market, in particular Chinese, but they have shorter lifetime. So the question is, what if you do the calculus over let's say 8-year period? Then it becomes a question of total cost of ownership. I just want to show a little slide on that. So the left-hand side of this slide is the same one as the previous one. We have the low power consumption. But you can do the calculus yourself here and say, okay, what's your yearly cost per square meter per lamp? Well, is that a depreciation of the capex of the lamp itself over a number of years, and then also the cost of electricity and the maintenance cost? And we actually come out and can compete against the cheapest solutions on the market, but at the same time, we can customize our spectrum and thereby increase the yield. So to a certain extent, you can see we are very competitive when it comes to a yield versus total cost of ownership. And this is why I see a huge potential in our technology. Just keeping in mind the data and how this data is going to turn out is, of course, depending on what you put in as a price of electricity, the lifespan, maintenance cost, and type of. There's a lot of things here. But one of my messages is we are at the right end of the scale when it comes to the competitive solutions for lighting solutions for vertical farms in general. Just a few slides more. I talked about the whole, knowledge about. Right now, we are the first. No, actually, our light panels are second generation when it comes to harvest. But the whole software, the control algorithm, the fact that we can build in sensors like temperature sensors, CO2 monitors, and actually cameras and ventilations in the products is something where we are going to enhance the value of these, I would call them advanced solutions. It's not a lighting solution anymore. It's an advanced solution which are built around the light panel. And since you know that the light panels are, core in any vertical farms, it makes sense to add these sensors. So we have a roadmap here and all our development activities that goes into that. And hopefully we can make solutions where we can optimize yield even further and thereby also increase the value and thereby also the price and the profit to LED iBond. 3 development areas. There's still a lot of work. I have to admit that, even that I sound very optimistic, it is still a path that we have to walk. It's the IT platform itself, and combining cameras and extracting data is something that's going to take time. We have some public funding ongoing already, where we are going to do more real-life growth experiments. It takes real-life growth experiments to optimize these solutions and get the learning. So that's why we're going to have a focus on the next, I would say, 2 years, probably longer, but it's not something, I'm not going to say months, it's years when it comes to that. At the other hand, we can also see that we have the technology platform, but just as Tracy, they're kind of linked here because we are using some of the products or the parts in both when it comes to LED and the assembly, etc. Is to make sure that we have cost reductions in the production so that we can increase profit in general when we go into volume. So we have plans for that, and we have a path forward. I don't see any issues, so to say, but it takes time in that. Warranty, quality, certification, same story. It's something that we have to pay big attention to because the requirements for these products are that they can last for, I would say, somewhere between 6 and 10 years being used 12, 14 hours a day. So we are at the high end when it comes to quality, so to say, and thereby also we are not that price sensitive if we, at the other hand, can guarantee long lifespan of the products, which we can in general. So just to summarize, the smart building, we call it. So this is where the carports, etc. was, the vertical farming. So these are the vertical farming smart is where we have our core focus. You may have heard about UV disinfection. It's something that the company has worked on a few years. It's not that I don't see opportunities in there. I'm just saying we are right now having our focus on the others, and the other one is being monitored, so to say. We have some dialogue with some customers, and if I flip to this slide, the difference is that basically we are trying to position our packaging technology. This is an example you see here below in the picture. Is actually UV diodes in the Tracy, but these sub-assemblies can go into equipment. So rather than being an equipment manufacturer, you can see that an example of that. The Purist Sap is a handheld device that was developed by the company iBond a few years ago during the Corona time, but we are going to position the technology more as modules for OEMs. And that also goes, by the way, for vertical farming, where there is an interest to use UV solutions in general. So we still have these 3 legs, but as I just said, the focus short term is on smart building when it comes to revenue, and then on vertical farming, the R&D development and traction in pilot testing, moving towards mid-size, maybe larger scale within foreseen future in general. Yes, that was it that I had planned.
Thank you, Martin, for a good presentation. I think we know a bit more about LED iBond now than we did 44 minutes ago. There are a few questions from the audience, and I would like to ask you to post them in the questions window down to your right, depending on which device you're connecting from. And I will read them out to you, Martin. To start out, and I think you summarized it pretty well, could you reiterate what are your main competitive advantages? Is it technology, is it pricing, or something else? Can you point to the main advantages compared to your competing the competitors out there?
Yeah. So there are 2 answers to this question, but let's start out with the solar carports as a good example. we have a solution which from a design perspective looks very nice. It's good looking, so to say, and it gives great light with low power consumption. But it's at the same time has the right form factor and fit into the installation. So it's form factor and its performance. I will not say price. We are a high-end product. It's not plastic. It's metal. So it's performance, design, and the mounting aspect when it comes to the smart building. When we go into vertical farming, we are again a high-end solution, but it's performance of the solution with the form factor being the right one, the performance in terms of power consumption, lifetime, customization, so it's a lot about performance when it comes to the vertical farming as unique selling points. Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. I'll just continue then. Historically, Tracy for the interior applications has been your major revenue driver, even though the numbers have been quite modest so far. Going forward, with your offering within the Tracy industry, with carports, etc., do you see that that is going to overtake the interior application of the Tracy product, so to say?
Yes, the short answer is yes. We can see that first of all, carports is something that is being built. They put them up as we speak. But we at the same time also see a fit for this solution to indoor parking facilities, garages. And there is a lot of them around the world. So the volume perspective compared to the interior is just many orders of magnitude larger. So I foreseen that the whole parking / carport is where we see huge potential in terms of volume. It doesn't mean that we don't like the interior. We actually just launched the black color, the Tracy in black, which is for an interior project. So it may still be of interest to serve that from an environmental perspective. It's more the parking area, much higher.
The next one would be the 7 reference projects that you mentioned in the presentation. Can you give any kind of indication what kind of revenue potential each one of them could be? And I understand that differs from project to project.
Instead of talking about those specific projects, I can say that the kind of sizes of projects we are seeing out there ranges from 20, 50, maybe 100 meters long carports up to carports with several kilometers of size. So from a revenue perspective, the larger projects will be a potential like a revenue of 1 million Danish crowns, whereas a small one may be on the order of 50,000. And we will have variety of these. And what is of interest to us is, of course, to get into the larger rollouts in general, being designed in, so to say. But if you take a indoor carport facility, like next to a big store facility with 7 stories it will also be somewhere in between that range.
Thank you. That's a good indication, Martin. Can you mention anything about your main competitors, and also perhaps in the same question, your major partners when it comes to distributing and actually getting your products into the market? Can you start please with your competitors? And I understand that differs quite a bit if you're in Tracy industry or if you're in indoor lighting or perhaps in vertical farming.
Yeah. If we take the indoor, the Tracy, I would say for the industry, for carports, etc. There may be thousands of competitors out there. There's so many different kind of lamps that you can, light panels that you can put. So we are not in a position to identify specific lamp producers and say they are our competitor. What is, on the other hand, kind of often the case is that a developer who is into, as an example, putting up solar carports, they have identified, maybe one or two kind of, solutions that they're working with, and we are being benchmarked against them. So it's very, customer specific what they pull up and say, oh, we have this Chinese lamp, etc. But bottom line in all this is they're not that good looking, but they are much lower cost. So it's a cost is the primary challenge that we are faced with when it comes to industry and also the interior, etc. And where we win is on the design and still maintaining the right performance in terms of installation cost, maintenance cost, lifespan, etc. So the performance, but it's more expensive, no doubt about it. We are high-end product from that perspective.
So the lifetime cost and the cost to performance ratio are the main factors speaking in your favor, I suppose.
Yes, I would say so. On the vertical farms, we have identified, I would say, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe key competitors. The 2 big ones or 3 big ones are the old Philips guys. It's General Electric and it's Samsung. So the very big guys, so to say, they have activities here. And then we have a few. And by the way, these are also high-end products normally in terms of performance, but also cost. So we kind of we call them high-end or high cost. But they win by being a trustworthy partner, so to say. And then we see a number of small competitors like us, small startups, doing some unique tailored products. They win again on a little bit on price, but not on performance. And I don't have, it's not my word, it's our customers saying, dear LED iBond, you have some great solutions. We know that you guys are high end in terms of cost, but there's check marks all the way on the other aspect, so to say. And the last huge group of competitors is Chinese. If you can find thousands, hundreds that's claiming that they are, making some lights. So it's a very, very crowded space, but it's low performance in general. They don't work.
And then again, the key stakeholders to persuade to choose your solution instead of others, are they industrial consulting firms doing the project management on major vertical farms, so to say, or is it the customers that you contact directly, or which channels do you go through in order to create business?
Good question. Right now we have a dual approach. So right now we are dealing with farmers, so to say, who are in the process of trying to, design their own farm. And the reason for doing that is that you cannot buy a vertical farm. But we are seeing a growing business in terms of, turnkey providers. We call them system integrators. And these system integrators are normally, they may produce hardware themselves. They may be kind of a consultancy company where they put together all the solutions. And we want to be designed in there because we think over time they will be the primary, way towards customers. By the end of the day, you will buy turnkey solutions to a great extent. Whereas right now it's the farmers who possess most of the knowledge. So some of our customers are actually doing very structured experiment with our lamps compared to competitors to make sure that they basically choose the lamp which gives them the optimum yield and also the economics. So it may be that our lamp is twice as expensive as the other one, but if our last 8 years and the other one lasts 3 years, we have from a financial perspective, economic perspective, an advantage. And this is something that our customers in both segments, so to say, are very focused on and understands fully.
And a question that is quite similar to the one that was recently asked, within vertical farming, can you give any kind of indication on the order value on one order for, let's say, a turnkey farm, if that is the case? Could that range from basically nothing to several million, or can you give some kind of indication there?
I would say that we're probably going to see phases. So even that if you have a farm, and let's say a typical farm will be like 10,000 square meters of production area, so to say, just to give you a number. But they may start out by building, 1,000 or 2,000 in the half year, the year, etc. It's coming. They have to learn as they move. But pretty soon, just from the light itself will be anything between 10 and 100 million Danish crowns in revenue to LED iBond. And the reason for that is that the volume are so huge. It's not 10 lamps, right, that you sell to a kitchen. It's thousands, tens of thousands of panels. And this is why the numbers become so small. This is why it also represents a huge opportunity for LED iBond. But what we are after is, of course, those big orders. But I would prefer to have 10 customers buying a little bit that I know will move into that phase at some point as they mature. Because then I know I have competitive technology, which I strongly believe. And I think that we'll see the first, I would say, significant orders in the next 12 months. If it's going to be 2-digit orders in terms of millions of Danish crowns within the next 12 months, highly depend on the development in the world in terms of war and prices, etc. But if that's not disturbing too much, I think we will start to see significant orders within the next 12 months, maybe even faster.
Thank you, Martin. I think the last question relating to vertical farming that we have is how much of a trade secret are the spectrums that you mentioned? Is that something that is highly specific to LED iBond, or is that well known within the industry? So being able to provide the right spectrums, is that a key selling point for you, or is that something that most farmers know already?
I would say all farmers know that spectrum and different spectrum has an impact. What they do not know is what the right optimum is. And the reason for that is it depends on a number of factors, the type of plant that you want to produce, etc. So a lot of experiments need to take place. And if we are getting ahead in terms of working with selected customers, the knowledge that we are gaining in our products becomes a competitive advantage for us. So there's a first moving advantage. But to a certain extent, you could copy if you know what it's for, so to say. But the trade secret that we have is we are selecting the diodes from they cannot duplicate that. That is our trade secret in our design. And the other thing is, they cannot necessarily they cannot produce our lamps. So you keep in mind, it was low power, it was the form factor, it was the water resistance, etc. So there's a number of things that is inherent to the design of the lamp, and at the same time, we can produce the optimal spectrum. And that is the unique, we have freedom in our design here to a large extent, which makes it very appealing. But to answer this differently, all farmers has been used to, to a certain extent, to daylight. Daylight has the spectrum it has, but right now they can, play around with the spectrum, and also playing around with the spectrum and different phases of the growth. So the freedom in optimizing your production is, much higher than what traditional farmers has been used to. So this is why there is an optimization process going on. So it's a learning curve for everybody, including LED iBond.
Thank you, Martin. If there are any remaining questions, please ask them now, because I only have one left to ask otherwise, and that is regarding your burn rate. And you early on in your presentation, you mentioned that you have lowered the headcount from 20 or 23 FTEs down to about half of that, 12, I believe the number was. Can you give any indication of your current monthly burn rate, with the perspective that you're now in the market to raise 12.7 million in a rights issue?
Okay, so how should I phrase this? I would say that we are out raising the amount of money right now in order to secure the next 12 months of operation, so to say, and get the traction that we are after in terms of customer engagement and pilot project, etc. Our burn rate right now, compared to 12 months ago, I think is like 1/3 of that. So it's significantly down compared to earlier. It's not only the headcount, it's also a variety of other costs that has been cut away and trimmed down.
Okay, many thanks, Martin.